Blog Talk Radio.
Warning, the following program may include profane language, controversial viewpoints, and perspectives on the true nature of reality so far removed from the status quo, they'll make your head spin like a top. Young children, corporate executives, and religious fundamentalists should turn away now.
Well, hello, greetings, brothers and sisters of planet Earth. Welcome to another edition of Extraordinary Year, a little rough out of the box, the online show that puts everyday people like you with questions about 2012 on the road to understanding. My name is Tim Bravo, and holy cow, what is going on? We are clearly having some audio problems tonight. All right, well, I'm going to stop listening, so I don't think I'm going to be able to take calls. But I am going to deliver a show to you guys tonight. I am dead determined to do this. So if you're out there and you're still listening or you're just tuning in, we're having some audio problems, I'm going to just get off headsets and talk into a mic and deliver you guys the show that you deserve. Okay, so this is Extraordinary Year. Welcome. My name is Tim Bravo. I want to thank you if you're still listening. It is 281 days until December 21st, 2012. On the show tonight, two old soldiers sit down on camera and share stories of dealings with spaceships and extraterrestrials from decades ago. These guys still have connections on the inside, and what they say is happening now just might make your heart explode with joy. Plus, mainstream media discloses Chilean military footage of a UFO and a general who now says he's a believer. Then, images surface from an upcoming documentary that proves the Mayans had extraterrestrial contact. And speaking of the Mayans, we'll quash an internet meme that says the Mayan Calendar was wrong because it didn't account for leap years. Today is 3/14, which is both Pi Day and Albert Einstein's birthday. And if you're a fan of the show, you know we have a soft spot in our hearts for the father of modern physics research. So we'll celebrate. No, I don't think we're going to have an Einstein quote tonight. But we pay homage to Professor One Rock himself. We'll have to wait and see what Matt Steiny Lawless. Well, no, he's not going to be here. Folks, again, I have to apologize. Not quite sure what's going on. We'll have to move forward and troubleshoot later. And, of course, tonight we'll also update you on the latest global financial resignation numbers. All this, and remember, you can post questions and talk amongst yourselves in the chat room on the episode page. And maybe if you post questions there, I will answer them there as opposed to phone calls tonight. So if you want to ask a question, you have something to say, pop over to the chat room and post it there. I'll remember to glance. Okay, so before we get started, I want to announce some upcoming guests. Next week, it's our spring equinox special, and we're going to have James Gilliland from the East City Ranch on the show. He will be our first official guest, and I am super, super happy that he's decided to come on. March 28th, we have a feature from an author, a blogger, and he's a literal genius, Steve Becko, from the website the2012scenario.com. And if you have listened to the show, chances are you've heard me talk about this website. It is one of my daily go-tos, and will be until this whole thing is done, I can tell you that. And we're honored to be able to speak with the Steve Becko, whose site that actually is. We have other exciting guests in the works, but I'm going to hold those tight to the vest until we have confirmed dates. But we're working on some stuff, and we're looking at ramping up this show and really giving people their time's worth. We're not going to ask you to pull into a show that's not going to give you anything new. And hopefully, as the changes commence, we will be able to answer your questions. So that's what we're here for. Okay, so first thing tonight, and caller. I see somebody's called in. I'm afraid we've got some audio issues tonight, and that's not going to work. I'll explain later. But if you want to ask a question, hop on over to the chat room, and I will answer your questions in there. Okay, so revelations from the Old Boys Network. Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot. She did this. It started off as like this guerrilla-style interview at the UFO Congress down in Arizona, I believe. I believe it was the Phoenix area. Maybe not, but it was down in the Southwest. Anyway, she did this guerrilla. She kind of drops in with a handheld camcorder on this conversation that includes Sergeant Bob Dean, he's former Master Staff Sergeant and was involved in some very, very deep black stuff. And he's just talking. She, catches up on him candidly. And then she also catches former Sergeant Clifford Stone, who has, written a book about the things that he saw and really has a lot to tell. And so she gets the both of them together for a sit-down interview. And both these guys, they both come from deep black ops backgrounds. They both saw fantastic things decades ago when this was all really becoming a thing with our country on the inside. And both these guys have grown the cojones to say something, to come out and say something. And they have some mind-blowing stories. But the biggest thing that I took away from the interview is what Bob Dean said toward the end. And it's like a 2-3 hour thing, as Carrie's videos usually are. They're an investment in time, but they're usually worth it. But instead of me explaining to you what Bob Dean said toward the end of this episode, I'm going to just play it for you. I've got the clip. We've downloaded it. And I just want you to listen to what former Staff Sergeant Bob Dean says is happening right now.
Let me tell you something. It's not easy to say that there are the good guys and there are the bad guys, and we're in the middle. That's true to a certain extent, and it's been true for the last 10,000 years, but it isn't particularly true today, because a third party has entered the game. An advanced culture, God knows who they are and what they are, but they're the higher in the the hierarchy. These guys at the top of the hierarchy are primarily spiritual in nature, and they have intervened. And they have said, listen, we've had enough of this bullshit where you've warred among yourselves, you've had these clan disagreements and blah, 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 blah. This family and that culture and that group, that's going to cease. Because the human race has been in the damn middle for so long now that they've reached a critical point in their evolution and their development. And we're going to have to see that the human race survives and makes this awkward, painful transition into a new race, into a new species. And this higher element, this higher spiritual element in the hierarchy has intervened, and they have literally said, Carrie, knock off the bullshit. We're not going to have any more of this. There's not going to be any more planetary wars. We've had enough of that. We've lost too many millions of people over the years. We're going to control this carefully. We're going to give them an encouragement. We're going to give them an opportunity, and we're going to assist them to make this awkward transition into a new race. Now, the only reason I'm hopeful now, when I used to go through this, I was very depressed and very cynical, because I'd seen so damn much of the knockdown, drag-out brawls, not only among our own people, but among some of these guys. And then I found out that there is this third party now that's involved, that couldn't care less about the clan disputes and the family different disagreements and all that. All they care is to see that the human species makes this awkward transition into a new race and can reach out and take our rightful place in space and go to the stars where we belong, for God's sake.
But that's their intention. That's what you've been told they want to do, because you were taken off-world by them.
Yes, I was, and they've given me encouragement.
Okay.
And they've showed me the future, Carrie, and the future is glorious. We are going to make it, and we're going to look back at this awkward period, this blackness that we've been through for the last century or two, and we're going to look back like students of history and say, my God, look what they went through. Look what they did to each other. We're going to look back from the future into this particular time and place, and we're going to say, how in the world did they pull that off? Here they are killing hundreds of millions of people in these wars, butchering each other. This has got to cease. We can't let that race off the planet until they evolve and grow and mature where they can be safe.
Okay, but Bob, that rationale, when you've got these races, off-planet races, who have been warring with each other for eons. So maybe there's a new guy on the block.
Let me tell you something.
That new guy is orchestrating things here. But actually, I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to be suspicious of even...
Well, it's all right to be suspicious, and I know where you're coming from. I was talking to Joe Farrell not too long ago at another conference, and Joe Farrell has written The Cosmic War. And the Cosmic War is a true story of a war between interplanetary intelligences. And they literally damn near destroyed each other. They destroyed a planet beyond Mars, for God's sake, in our own solar system. But that crap has got to cease. And I have had the opportunity to meet guys from the higher level who said, we're not going to allow that to happen anymore. We're going to give you a chance to make it. And the only reason I'm hopeful, and I told you this privately earlier, is that I have seen the future, and there is a future for the human race, and it's beautiful.
Okay, and I appreciate that, okay, and I would agree with you. And I think a lot of people listening to this, who will listen, will agree with you. That's why we're all here. That's what we're working for. But the work is still to be done. And what I want to do is keep eyes on the ground right now. And I want to talk about the idea of what's right before people, because this is 2012, we're going into 2013, and some of these years are very crucial years. Okay, as you say, these are going to kind of be the years in which the transition happens. So
it's happening right now.
Exactly. So what I want to talk about here is, first of all, yes, you have a lot of bad kids in the class, okay, and those involve the Illuminati, some of whom are basically being run by certainly groups of reptilians, certainly a group of Anunnaki that may not have our best interests in mind. They'd like to clear the planet. They've got big plans, and they've been working on those plans for a very long time. And both of you must have been face to face with that agenda.
Their agendas exist because they exist. And they've had some of their own personal agendas for eons of time. But their plans for our future don't mean diddly squat, because there are these higher developed cultures out there that have now intervened, and they're going to see that the human race is going to be allowed to make it.
Okay, and you've said that, and I agree. But the thing is, the idea here is not that somebody come in, organize the schoolyard for us, and then they go off on their own business, and then we're left to deal with it. The idea is that we learn to walk on our own.
We organize the schoolyard ourselves.
Okay. So there's a great importance for the human race to take sovereignty, to take their rightful place as members of the galactic community. Recognize who we are.
What they understand who they are, yes.
That we have. Okay?
The human race is precious. The human species is so unique that they told me, when I was with them for 6 weeks, I was asking them question after question after question. I found that they were as interested in me as I was interested in them. And I asked them why. And they says, you human beings don't grasp who you really are. You have a unique genome that is unique in the galaxy. You're made up of the patterns and the parts and pieces and genes and whatever of at least 12 different races in the universe. And as a result of that, we think of you as unique. As a result of that, we look upon your little planet as probably one of the ripest and richest zoological gardens in this quadrant of the galaxy. And that's the first time I realized the galaxy had been divided into 4 parts. I didn't even realize there was a quadrant. And they said, oh yes, you're the most unique and precious zoological garden in this quadrant of the galaxy.
Absolutely.
We venerate the planet, we venerate the flora and fauna on it, And we're going to see that it survives. Now, I'm getting this from the higher level.
Okay. So, I know that was 8 minutes. Callers, you guys are out there. What'd you think of that? Monica, I see you're on. Were you listening in?
Yeah, I was, but I've heard it before.
Okay. Who's my other caller?
It was David.
Cool.
David!
I thought there was issues with the channel.
There were, but I fixed it. I'll explain what it's operator error. It probably sounds just fine to you guys out there, and I'll explain later to you what I did there. It's operator error, a technical glitch. We'll blame it on machinery, but it was really my fault. Anyway, so did you guys listen to the clip?
What specifically would you like me to comment on?
Well, I understand that was an 8-minute clip. It's a lot of your time of the show, but it's worth it because you're hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And what he had to say was so off the cuff and so from his heart and so amazing that you really just, I don't know. I was amazed by it. What did you guys think about what he said?
And this was you said staff sergeant?
Yeah, he was a former master staff sergeant. His name was Bob Dean, and he actually he had meetings with extraterrestrials and, had them landing on strips and hovering there while they met and stuff. I mean, this guy he claims to have spent 6 weeks off-world with extraterrestrials. And in that time, learned all this stuff, and so.
Where was this? Is this posted on the blog on the site?
Yes. If you go to the Facebook page, that whole clip that I played, you can hear the full 3-hour interview. Just go to YouTube and check out Project Camelot and Bob Dean. You're going to get there.
Now, how long has he been retired for?
A long time. I'm going to guess. What did he say? He's something like 78, 82, somewhere in there. I mean, we're talking, this guy was doing deep black stuff back in the 50s.
Okay.
Or 60s.
And when were, so the events that he was speaking of, were they happening back then, or?
Well, he went off world. I don't know when it was that he supposedly went off world, but he wasn't talking about back then in this clip. The clip, what I was playing, is what's happening now, and basically how all you timeline tours out there need to just chill the fuck out because it's not going to go down that way. A third party has stepped in. Heaven has stepped in. There is divine intervention that says, you know what, these races that were creating the situation, they've been kicked out. They were kicked out a long time ago. And now, nothing that the Earth elites, who are now all on their own, nothing that they want to accomplish is going to be possible. And that's what he's saying. He's saying there's a third party that stepped in. You don't just have the good guys and the bad guys or whatever. You have something higher has stepped in and said, this is how this is going to go, like it or not. It is unstoppable. Another world is unstoppable. We can move forward knowing that no matter what, it's going to happen. So let's work from that perspective.
And he's still alive to this day?
Yeah, this was recorded not long ago at the UFO Congress, whenever that was. But it was recent.
I'm trying to call into Tim's thing.
Oh, hey, by the way, 612, you are on the air.
Hey, Tim.
Matt, is that you?
That is.
Excellent. Very, very cool to have you on the conversation tonight. It's turning into a party lineup in here. So, Monica, I never did get from you what you thought of all that.
Well, there's a lot to respond to there. I asked what specifically you wanted me to comment on.
Whatever strikes your fancy, I guess. I mean, do you come away with any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard not to come away from something like that with a lot of different thoughts. But, I mean, I have a hard time. There's so much information to go through, that I'm still in the very beginning stages of processing.
All right. Well, we'll move on to more on the whole ET disclosure front, because the Huffington Post has reported on a presentation given by this Chilean Army general, he gives this presentation that shows footage of this flying saucer zipping around this formation of fighter jets. And, this is basically incontrovertible proof that's being presented by a government's military, a leader in this particular government's military, who is then saying, I was a skeptic, now I'm a believer, and I really think that as a planet, we kind of need to figure this thing out, don't you think?
Well, I'm confused how these big guys are able to come forward and say this. Is the government just not worried? They're just like, well, everybody will think they're crazy, or?
Well, it's the country of Chile, Yeah, there might be the U.S. might come down on them, but we're talking about a Chilean army general here.
Okay.
But the story is on the Huffington Post, and that's, to me, part of why this is worthy of note, because the Huffington Post, for all intents and purposes, is super mainstream, especially if you, for anyone on the left, but left of center, or just curious what's being talked about. The Huffington Post does a lot of work. They do a lot of good work. They do a lot of mainstream work. They do a lot of fluff, entertainment stuff. But that's because they're mainstream. They're the Huffington Post. And they're constantly doing this UFO stuff. But, that's where this story was. And that's not all.
Well,
I'm sorry. You were going to say?
Well, I was curious, and I think David might have been kind of getting at this with his question. But I was curious if the Chilean government's willing to come out and say, hey, guess what? There are UFOs hanging around people, and we should probably do something with that. What benefit does the U.S. have in not disclosing as well?
Because if they disclose, they have to disclose that they've known and that they've got this technology that they've been sitting on. And then the people are going to come for them like they just got told to eat cake.
But
gotcha.
Realistically, this is just one army general. It wasn't the entire government of Chile that was coming out, divulging this information. It was just one
that's
guy.
True. But we're talking about
have no idea of his sanity or connection at all.
Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair. But Chile has, I believe, is one of the countries that have recently publicly formed a council to look into the phenomena. Actually, have formed a government body to research the phenomena, and have publicly said that they were going to do so. And I believe Chile is one of those countries.
But I don't think the U.S. or Australia or many other countries have ever hidden their curiosity about extraterrestrial life. I think that a lot of countries have come forward and said, well, we have people researching and looking into it, but what does that really mean?
Well, that's the disinformation. That's the story. That's the cover story. That's what they tell you. Oh, we're looking into it. We're going to funnel a bunch of money into SETI. Meanwhile, to see if maybe there's life out there, maybe we can get a signal. Meanwhile, we've had contact since the 40s at the latest, and they're lying about it. They aren't interested in letting us know the truth. They don't want us to know the truth. And one of the reasons that these guys can come out and talk, and that this general is able to make mainstream media, and that the mainstream media in America is able to actually print the story, is that this thing has started. It has begun, and it's crumbling from the top. Well, from the bottom up right now, but when it actually swings into full gear, it's going to be crumbling from the top down. The arrests have begun.
And I'm not a denier by any means. You know, I'm a realist. I understand the probabilities of it all, and it makes sense to me. However, you know, when I hear even the 8-minute clip that you played, you know, I have a hard time. I have to say bullshit on a lot of this stuff because he's playing to the religious. He's playing to this sense of superiority, of human superiority, this anthropogenic centrism. He's feeding our selfish needs and desires, you know, by saying that we have this unique genome. And it just, to me, I mean, that raises a lot of red flags. I mean, honestly, evolution has provided a common thread within all of the genomes of the species on this planet, and to say that one is better or more great than another. I mean, we're all unique in terms of our genomes. And it just, to me, it just raises so many red flags. It's like this guy is biologically deficient. He just doesn't understand the information that's out there, and especially considering
I understand what you're saying.
Timeline of it all.
But I think that you don't have quite the full picture. If that were the case, I would agree with you 100%. But I don't think that is the case, Matt. I think that what he's saying is not that humanity is any better or greater than any other creature out there, because the people who are saying these things are here to tell you that you are no greater. That you know, Bill Gates, just because he's got $1 million, bazillion, quadrillion dollars, is not better than you, and you are not better than, you know, the poor kid on the street in some Arab country. It's just that we're unique, we're special in our own way, I think is what he was trying to say, and that we don't understand because we've been told that we can't do these things that we can do if we just work within the true natural universal laws. I'm glad you called in because I need a counterpoint, buddy. Thank you. And I'm not. I guess I feel like I'm on here preaching sometimes, and maybe I forget that not everybody lives in my world. And I think that your concerns are completely warranted. But I don't think that what you think is the situation is the situation, is what I'm saying. Okay, but getting
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to move on from there and talk about some other stuff that's been going on. Because last year, you guys might remember the actor Raul Julia. He was in the Addams Family. He was like Papa Adams. Anyway, former actor, late actor, he died. His son, Raul Julia Levy, declared last year he's going to release this documentary this year that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt there's a connection between the Mayans and extraterrestrials. And Nassim Haramein from the movie Thrive, you might know him, apparently has presented images that are supposedly going to be in this upcoming documentary. And if you go to our Facebook page, check it out, you can see the video that has all these different artifacts. And some of them, I mean, there's just a ton of them, but some of them are clearly depicting spacecraft. I mean, like that, I don't even have to know what that is. That's a flying saucer. I know flying saucers in particular, a bunch of artifacts of beings with huge, slanted, almond-shaped eyes. Sound like anyone we know? So I recommend checking that out.
Pictures or drawings?
No, they're like Mayan. They're like art, like these tablets, the clay tablets that were carved into and put through a kiln or something is what they look like. There's a ton of them. And, I mean, they're just amazing. Some of them are pretty run-of-the-mill, and some of them are like, oh, well, no doubt what that's about. And apparently this is stuff that's been sat on, and that's finally going to see the light of day. And speaking of the Mayan calendar, hey, Canada, you're still listening, right?
I am.
Okay. So this week, Canada sends me this internet meme, text, email, Facebook share thing that's been going around, and it's claiming to burst the bubbles of doomsayers.
Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, David, if you'll read it, and you can find this on the Facebook page as well.
Okay, it says, warning, I'm about to burst your doomsday bubble for all you doomsdayers out there. There have been about 514 leap years since Caesar created it in 45 BC. Without the extra day every 4 years, today would be July 28, 2013. Also, the Mayan calendar did not account for the leap year, so technically, the world should have ended 7 months ago.
And now I'm going to tell you why that's bullshit. Okay, well, first of all, we're not doomsday believers on this show. Well, Canada might still be, but I'm working on them, folks.
Hey, I'm just a precautionist.
Okay, well, we're not doomsday believers on this show, but this meme says that the Mayan calendar didn't account for leap years, so the world should have ended 7 months ago. Well, obviously, this is from somebody who doesn't know anything about the Mayan calendar, because it's not about the world ending, first of all. It's about the current age ending and a new one starting. But that aside, tonight we're going to arm you with the info to slap down this meme if and when it hits your inbox. Okay, so when David sent me this thing, and by David I mean Canada, when he sent me this thing, I decided, well, didn't you say we should talk about it on the show, Dave?
I did.
Okay, so I pulled out David Wilcock's Source Field Investigations last night. It is a fantastic text. I recommend it to every human, and it's one of the quickest ways to understanding the true nature of reality. If you care about stuff like that, check out that book. It's got everything in it, and chapter 16 covers the Mayan calendar. Now, the Mayan calendar is not a yearly calendar like our Gregorian calendar with its leap year every 4 years. So, since it's not even a yearly calendar, it's like comparing apples to oranges to talk about leap years, because the Mayan calendar follows multiple sets of cycles all going at the same time. For instance, every 25,000 years or so, they all end together, which is what will happen this December 21st, ergo the whole end of the world prophecy. But it's really just the end of an age. Okay, so they have all these different cycles. One cycle goes for 20 days. It was like our month, but every 20 days. It was called a winal. Well, 18 winals together create a different cycle of 360 days called a tune. 360 days. Indications are, and there's science to support this, that the Earth year used to be 360 days. And then the fifth planet in our solar system was destroyed and turned into what we now know as the asteroid belt. I mean, the whole asteroid belt thing, like, we've got planet, asteroid belt, planet. Like, why? Why would it be in the harmonic spot away from the sun that another planet would be? Well, because it used to be a planet, and it's not anymore. And so now, instead of 360 days, which would be a perfectly synced thing for all the numbers in our solar system, this explosion, this planet, threw the clockwork off a little bit. And the Mayans compensated by adding a 5-day thing called a Wayeb to the tune, the 360-day tune, to create a 365-day hab, like our year. But there were other cycles, part of the calendar, that had nothing to do with the movement of the Earth or the Moon or the Sun. They had a 260-day cycle called a Tzolk'in that helped track other events in the solar system across giant spans of time. I mean, 260 days, that's one. Well, they would add these things up and know, okay, well, this thing happens every so many Tzolk'ins or whatever. So they had all this complexity in their calendar and in their way of keeping time. And I'm sorry, but the whole Gregorian calendar and its leap year couldn't even hope to be as cool as the Mayan calendar. So, obviously, the Mayans had no idea what a leap year was. Their calendar didn't need a stupid leap year. They had much bigger things worked out. Way more advanced than our modern calendar. But it's typical of Westerners to think that what they have is the best. Not even close. Ask yourself how they got these understandings of the long-term workings of the solar system. How did they even know it was out there? Even the galaxy. Obviously, they had help from extraterrestrials. Period. Get used to the idea. Because they've been here, and they're still here, and they're going to be here. And you're going to have to face it. And don't be afraid, because they're our buddies. They're our family. They're good people. Anyway, you can tell I'm a little passionate about it.
It would be pretty cool if all the aliens were like Paul.
If they were really tall?
If they were like Paul?
Oh, Paul.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome, David. I'm in agreement.
Paul's pretty cool, but I don't see the extraterrestrials I've heard about anyway eating birds.
You gotta open your mind, Tim.
They wouldn't hurt another living thing, including you. So don't be afraid.
So what do you think they eat then on that topic, on that subject? Do you think they just absorb or
light?
Or
I would say they're beings of light.
I mean, for the most part, if they're that much further advanced than us, if they're even just a little further advanced than us, for the most part, they don't live a three-dimensional existence. And we're not going to live a three-dimensional existence after this year. And if you're living a three-dimensional existence after this year, it ain't going to be on this planet. So, I mean, we're all moving toward... So basically, they've surpassed the need for physical bodies, kind of like what your show of the week was talking about last week.
Right.
Have fun getting over the need for physical existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, my question, one of my big questions is, according to your beliefs, is, that this has happened so many times, and we've individually or spiritually, mentally, whatever, have gone through this so many times. And when it happens again, we're not going to remember anything? That's a question, by the way.
No.
So we won't remember anything from our past. We won't remember the people.
No. Because what's happening this time is different. What's happening now is you are reuniting with everything you've ever been, everything you've ever done, every person you've ever been. The veil is going to be peeled back. You're gonna be able to automatically. There will be no lies. You won't be able to hide anything from anybody, and nobody will be able to hide anything from anybody else. The end of corruption, the end of lies, the end of not knowing. If there's anything you want to know, it's there. You're part of it all. But that's really kind of the spiritual side of things, because spiritually we're moving on to literally a higher dimension.
And again, it gets really complicating, because you're saying, we're all one. We're all a part of what is God and the planet and whatnot. So ideally, going off of that, I'm really you, you're really me, Catherine's really Monica, Monica's you, I'm Monica, in a sense.
And we're all God.
We are all one mind, one spirit, and we make this giant movie for our one mind that separates into billions of other minds. That's
a way of looking at it. At it.
When we do transcend, we won't remember anything because we're all...
Well, that's just talking about, these series of lives that we've done in the third dimension in what's called duality. You've got up, you've got down, you've got left, you got right, you got black, you got white, you got hot, you got cold, you got bad, you got good. Well, that's going away into kind of a unity consciousness is what they call it, where you are at one with everything, and, all you have to do is choose the good, and that's what you're going to have. And why would you choose the bad? Why would you hurt somebody else when you know you're just hurting yourself?
Right.
And you're not going to be able to get away from that. You're going to just naturally choose. If you're going to exist at that level of existence, then you have already reached the point where you realize you're not going to hurt somebody else because you're just hurting yourself. And if you haven't really reached that realization at like the soul level, then it may not be time to graduate. And that's kind of what this is. It's a matriculation on a planetary scale.
This might be a terrible example, but I don't know. I think it kind of relates. But Hellboy 2, the movie Rise of the Golden Army, the elves are, the one race that everybody's after. They pretty much, they live by total peace and harmony, and they live by their word and whatnot. And then the prince and the princess, if one gets hurt, then the other, gets hurt as well. You're talking about a higher race, and I mean, they kind of resemble that race that you're talking about.
What was that in?
Hellboy 2.
Oh, I remember those two. They kind of looked like
the brother and sister.
They kind of look like the elves from the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally they live in perfect, harmony. Well, they did with the planet and with each other, and there was no evil doing until man brought it about. In essence, it's kind of like it's really I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's almost a metaphor for our real life. A hidden metaphor. If we were to think of what you're talking about now with these higher beings being at that point, and Earth, we're destroying it and whatnot, but we're about to get to that point. It's kind of just like that movie. They were there, the humans took over, put them underground, but then they're coming back up, and then mankind will see what's really going on.
Yeah, see, it's an archetype that storyline implants in our collective consciousness of a possibility, of an idea, and it's planted in the collective consciousness and sits in there so that we can recognize something like that. We have something, we've got context for it. So, yeah, I think that messages like that make it into mass media just on a purely almost psychic manner, where people just pick up on stuff and it just works its way into art. Really, I find more and more, I'm looking back at stuff from a while back, decades ago, where it's like, oh, wow, oh, how about that? It's been in front of us this whole time. But it isn't until things really start to change and you hear the story of how it's going to all unfold that you actually see. So, as I told you guys, today is Albert Einstein's birthday, and it's also Pi Day. Do you know what I mean by pi, Canada? I meant not like pie that you eat, but pi, the number, the ratio. 3.14. Yeah. Okay, so today is 314, 314. Like pi, 3.14. And it's also Albert Einstein's birthday. And, just a wonderful coincidence, because if you watch the show, we like the Albert Einstein. I was kind of hoping that Steiny would call in with a nice quote for us here to celebrate Albert Einstein's birthday. But anyway, it's worthy of note because we do love Albert Einstein on this show. It's his birthday, so happy birthday, Al. Thanks for all you've done. You don't have a quote, do you?
I I got a quote. I'm not sure if it's been said yet.
Okay,
you can
well.
in if you want.
Und jetzt Zeit für Einstein.
A human being is a part of a whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our tasks must be to free ourselves from this prison by wielding our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty.
Gee, okay, now read the first and last part of that again, and then think about what we were just talking about with the whole, you looking at so-and-so, was looking at so-and-so, we're all one God. We're all one thing.
Right.
and then read what you just said again in that context. You just had Albert Einstein answer your question.
He's a lot smarter than me. It probably made a lot more sense to him. I mean, I understand it. I definitely do. He put it in good words to where it definitely makes sense. It's like the thinking about the universe. Where does it end? It's one of those things that's just so hard to comprehend. It gives you a headache, and you just got to go to bed afterwards.
Well, thanks for the quote. We needed that. And Albert deserved it. But moving along, because we only have about 11 minutes left, and I got some stuff I want to get in. I want to move on to quickly cover the latest global financial resignations. We are up to, I need a drum roll. That's what we're going to do next week. I'm going to institute a drum roll for the number of latest global financial resignations. Because today we're up to, give me a drum roll, Canada, 320 global financial resignations since late last year, but mostly this year, mostly last month. And each week we've been telling you what the number is and how many that day. Well, the latest numbers are from 2 days ago, and there were 9 announced Monday. So 9 of that 320 were announced Monday, and it just keeps skyrocketing it up. You can check with AmericanKabuki.blogspot.com, which is one of the sites that's keeping track of all this stuff with links. And they have found charts produced in Japan. They're Japanese charts, but they basically show the resignations per sector and per country, and you see these graphs that just start shooting up right in recent times, and like they're exponentially growing. So I'm telling you guys, this stuff is happening. We're up to 320 now. Don't believe me? Go check out AmericanKabuki.blogspot.com, and they announce something every day, every couple of days, and also post some other stuff that will trip your mind. So bring your open mind to AmericanKabuki.blogspot.com. Okay, and what I wanted to move on to is sightings. We talk about sightings on the show. There have been some interesting ones on the YouTube lately, but somebody who's called in right now had a UFO sighting yesterday morning. Monica saw something cool, and she told me about it. And Monica, I would really love it if you would tell the listeners what you saw yesterday morning.
I can do that. Well, it was about 6:45 in the morning, and I went out to start my car to take the kiddo to cheerleading, and I sat down on the porch, and as I sat down, like in my peripheral vision, I saw this like bright white light. So I looked up thinking that it was lightning, and when I looked up, the light that looked like it had spread out, like expanded, like suddenly contracted, and I saw this like bright white line, and it was like there and gone in a second. And about the time that it disappeared out of the sky, you could hear this really faint like boom, and then it was gone.
Kind of like a sonic boom, but higher up.
Sure.
Okay. And you told me yesterday that the line of light reminded you of something.
It reminded me of Star Trek.
Like when they do the warp drive?
Yeah, when he's like, both, like warp speed, and they take off.
Ha ha ha. So there you have it, folks. I've been saying it. Monica saw it. The Galactic Federation is real. She saw a Galactic Federation ship. I'm telling you. And that happened yesterday. That's from her mouth right there. She saw it.
Yeah, that was Tuesday morning.
So they've said that they're going to start showing themselves more often from now on. So keep your eyes open if you're listening. Every time you go outside, take a look up. Just look around. You might see something. I've seen stuff. Monica's seen stuff. She just saw something Tuesday.
And your listeners should probably know that when it comes to the UFO stuff and alien stuff, I'm not a disbeliever, but I'm definitely a skeptic. Well, I mean, you and I have plenty of conversations about this. You know that about me.
Yep. Yeah,
that's not a surprise. But somebody else listening to the show might not know that and might not know that this information is coming from somebody who's actually pretty, on the fence still.
That's a great way to put it. Are you still on the fence, having seen the stuff that you've seen in the last year? I mean, I know you came in kind of late on the one that went through the Big Dipper that I saw last year, but you did see that, right?
Yeah, when we were on the walk.
No, not the one when we were on the walk. That was earlier. No, but after the ones that we saw when we were walking. Remember the one when I saw that shot up through the Big Dipper from down the front yard, and I had you come look, and you only saw the very end of it?
Yes, I do remember that now.
Okay. But we have seen stuff together, and you saw something. Well, you saw something recently over by the airport too. So it seems that you are the only one seeing these UFOs anymore, not me. And it's funny because
you're like, we have to convince her.
I'm all in. Yeah, exactly. I'm all in. Monica's on the fence, so she's getting the sighting. Well, of course, you're not going to find me outside at 6:45 a.m. So, maybe that's what I'm missing.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that anything is possible. So.
Well, it was probably swamp gas.
I don't think so, but okay.
It was ball lightning.
What? It was ball lightning. I've never seen any lightning like that. And I live in, where we live, we see plenty of lightning.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay, so Canada, do you have a show of the week? Maybe not a clip, but something we should go see?
I do not this week, no.
Okay. No show of the week. We're going to come up with something cool for next week. By the way, David, you did hear that next week we're going to have an incredible guest in James Gilliland with the ESETI Ranch, right?
I did. I got that message.
Okay. Well, for listeners who aren't aware who James is, James runs the ESETI Ranch. ESETI stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And that's exactly what they do. They're in Washington at the foot of Mount Adams, which is purported to be a UFO base. And there's plenty of evidence for it because they're constantly seeing light ships there. They've got tons of videos of it. People flock there in droves and spend time at the ESETI Ranch just to get a glimpse of UFOs. And everybody who goes pretty much sees UFOs. And you can interact with them and shoot lasers at them, and they'll brighten up for you. And it's not just extraterrestrials. It's not just light ships. They've got kids seeing fairies and photographs of fairies. Anything you can believe in is like showing up at this place. It's just this magic land of phenomena because of the people who go there and who stay there. The people of the ranch themselves are a great bunch of people, and they're part of this community that they've created. They work together, they love each other, and they practice spirituality and commonly practice, contact and channeling and stuff like that. So there's a lot of spiritual give and take, and a lot of stuff going on there. And it's supposedly at one of the node points, I'm thinking, of the Earth. So there's just a lot of natural energy for that sort of thing there. And James is going to talk to us about the work that they do there. And then I'm going to try and get him to tell us if he knows what's coming down the pipe in the very near future based on things that he's learned because of his work at the ranch. So we're going to have an amazing talk with James Gilliland next week. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really hoping that people will tune in for that. And we'll open up the phone lines and do some questions and see what James has to say. Anybody have any parting thoughts? Any parting thoughts before we go?
No. Other than I think it's totally appropriate that Einstein's birthday is on 3/14.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? Yeah, it's just one of those coinkydinks. Like David answering his own question with his own quote. But we got about 90 seconds here. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Canada?
Oh, I was just going to end with my final thought by Dr. Seuss.
Haha, hit us.
Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
Nice. You know what? If you get an idea for what we should do for your Dr. Seuss sounder, let me know and I'll work it up, buddy.
Okay.
All right. In the meantime, want to give a quick shout out to our YouTubers who listen in. A lot of you guys listen pretty regularly. I know you do, and I thank you. You guys are loyal. You know, come check us out live because you can call in and talk to us and let us know what you think. You know, view counts prove that people are really hungry for information, so I'm inviting YouTubers to call in and you know, participate. You can reach us at facebook.com/extraordinaryyear. Would really love if you'd go over there, like us, share stuff you see on the wall, spread it with your Facebook friends. We need to get people talking about this stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Tim Bravo. You can follow David at Tainted Drums. So we're gonna say sayonara and namaste. It's gonna be an extraordinary year.